The persistent widow. That's what the parable found in Luke chapter 18 verses 1 through 8 is popularly called. But cultural insights urge more precise translations of this story to show why its popular title is inappropriate. Luke chapter 18 verses 1 through 8. Then he told them a parable about the necessity for them to pray always without becoming weary. He said, "There was a judge in a certain town who neither feared God nor respected any human being. And a widow in that town used to come to him and say, 'Render a just decision for me against my adversary.' For a long time the judge was unwilling, but eventually he thought, 'While it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver a just decision for her, lest she finally give me a black eye.' The Lord said, 'Pay attention to what the dishonest judge says. Will not God then secure the rights of his chosen ones, who call out to him day and night? Will he be slow to answer them? I tell you, he will see to it that justice is done for them speedily. But when the skyvault man comes, will he find loyalty on earth?" Think about the widow. The word for widow in Hebrew means silent one, or one unable to speak. In the patriarchal Mediterranean world, males alone play a public role. Women do not speak on their own behalf. A widow who has lost her husband and spokesperson to death is in an even worse condition if the eldest son is not married. Younger widows were considered to be very dangerous and were urged to remarry. One of the major concerns of the early Jesus groups was determining who truly was a widow. You can see this discussion in 1 Timothy chapter 5. Because widows were not included in Hebrew laws on inheritance, they became common symbols of the exploited and oppressed. Prophets like Isaiah and Malachi criticized the harsh treatment they received. And throughout the Bible, widows are viewed as being under the special protection of God. Because this widow appears alone in this parable, we can assume that she has no male family member who can appear on her behalf. Since women normally did not appear in public courtrooms in this culture, we can assume that this widow has no male family member who can appear on her behalf. She is truly alone and therefore suffers an extremely vulnerable situation. At the same time, she is desperate. Being already deprived of everything of value in her society, what else does she have to lose? Her life? Now consider the judge. Very likely this is a local magistrate. For the anonymous author we call Luke, the judge is a stock character. If he were a Torah-observant judge, then he would feel obliged to take special care of the widow. If nothing else, a judge might surely fear the curse for not doing justice for a widow. But this judge is none of the above. The story asserts, and the judge himself admits, that he does not fear God, and that he is shameless, meaning nobody can make him feel ashamed. Remember that shame in the Bible carries both a positive sense and a negative sense. In the cultural world of Jesus, where honor is the core value and shame is its unfailing corollary, the judge is a cultural misfit. Worse, without the basic cultural equipment, he can hardly be expected to do justice. What does he care how his actions would be seen and interpreted by the community, or what their impact might be? Now comes the cruncher. The widow keeps coming to the judge. Remember that this is not a private audience. Like everything in the Middle Eastern world, it is a very public event. The entire community waits, watches, and witnesses the event regularly. What finally moves the judge is not the widow's persistence, but rather that, literally translated, she will end up giving me a black eye. The Greek word in that verse is borrowed from boxing. The Greek language also used the word figuratively to mean blacken one's face, which means to publicly shame a person. The translation that the Revised Standard Version uses, wear me down, is incorrect and misses the entire point. Shame. By publicly badgering the judge every day, the woman repeatedly shames this shameless person. Who knows, but maybe at some point she might even sock him in the face. And the judge who boasts that he is insensitive to shaming strategies and doesn't give a damn about his honor ultimately yields to her pressure. After all, in a culture where law courts were not really about justice, but shaming other people, no matter what the cost, this judge would be damaged by the gossip report that a woman has shamed him. He'd never live that down and could not continue as a judge in this cultural world. What irony! This wicked judge, who is described as being shameless, incapable of sensing the meaning of his conduct toward others, and who pridefully acknowledges that he is such a person, is finally willing to admit that his face, his reputation, his honor, could be in trouble if he cannot get rid of the troublesome widow. And what is the moral of the story? The Lucan Jesus' conclusion is this: if a helpless widow can get through to a wicked, shameless judge, all the more can a petitioner inside the Jesus group be heard by an honor-sensitive God. God is honor-sensitive? God cares about God's honor? Yes, in the Bible, God does. Recall Ezekiel chapter 36. It's the one instance where God indicates greater concern for personal honor, God's own, than for the house of Israel. Others would besmirch God's reputation, and God, like any other honor-driven being, simply cannot allow that to happen. Remember the old medieval axiom, all God talk is analogy. All analogy is rooted in human experience. And all human experience is culturally specific. So, if the inspired authors of the Bible hail from a cultural world obsessed about honor and shame, and they did, certainly, well, expect them to write about a God who likewise is obsessed about honor and shame. You don't see that in the Bible as you read it? Too bad for you. It's on every single page of the Bible. Take off your American or Western glasses because they are ill-suited for scripture reading. The anonymous author named Luke gives a moral that's convincing in the Mediterranean world 2,000 years ago, but may be less convincing to our 21st century Western world. Today, you can find many believers who remember offering prayers that seem to have gone unanswered. Some people have remarked inside the church, of course God answered you. God said no. This observation may be too simplistic. Remember that, unlike our extremely individualistic culture, the circum-Mediterranean world is strongly group-oriented. The widow's petition was publicly made. For all his bluster and denial, the judge respected public opinion. Nevertheless, it was group pressure that made the judge cave in. But Americans, including American Christians, including American Catholics, are individualistically oriented and generally discount the value of the group. American believers, generally speaking, address individualistic prayers to God in private. No group hears, and no group can help. Folks, the widow's strategy is worth pondering.